How's it going, everybody? We are talking about politics today, so if you've got a question about politics, let me know in the chat. I am fixing my background right now over on TikTok, so give me a second while I make some adjustments. But we should be ready to roll momentarily. All right. Ask me anything about politics, everybody. You can ask me anything that you like. I'm here to answer your questions about politics. There's going to be no roasting, no judgments, no debating. I am just here to answer your questions. I know what it feels like to not know anything about politics and have questions and feel worried that you're going to sound dumb or you're going to get roasted or someone's going to judge you for the question that you asked. There's not going to be any judgments here. There's not going to be any debating here. There's not going to be any roasting here. You don't got to worry, if I ask this, he's going to think I'm some sort of MAGA lunatic, or if I ask this, he's going to think I'm some squishy libtard. There's no judgments whatsoever. There's no debates. I'm just here to answer your good faith questions. Happy New Year, everybody. Let's start the new year off right and talk about politics and get people engaged in politics and make sure everybody understands that it's important to vote and all that great shit. So ask me whatever that you like, and we can get into it today because it is a new year. And so we are embracing people and encouraging them to get engaged in politics so that we could make our country and our world better for everybody. You can ask me anything that you like. There's no judgments. There's no debating. You don't got to worry if I'm not going to say, you're so dumb, you should know that already, or I'm not going to say, you're some MAGA ding-dong, or, you're some psychotic liberal, Rocco says, blue or red? I vote Democrat, but that does not mean that I can't answer your questions if you are not a Democrat. I'll answer anybody's questions. I am available to answer all of your questions. BitNevo, why hasn't the U.S. banned money in politics and set term limits? Because the Republican Party has an outsized influence on politics because our electoral system benefits Republicans with the Electoral College, the Senate map, and gerrymandering, and they do not want the money out of politics. It is an express part of their platform that they want to make sure that money stays in politics. And so because people keep on voting for Republicans and they keep on being able to stop any legislation from getting money out of politics, then money stays in politics. So if you think, like I do, that we should get the money out of politics, then y'all should stop voting for Republicans. Joshua Cowis, how do you feel about the ongoing use of the Electoral College? I think it's dumb. I think it has long outlived its usefulness, and I think it has been long since the time that we should have gotten rid of it. And if you live in a swing state, you should call your reps and tell them that you want your state to join the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, which, if enough states sign up for it, will effectively eliminate the Electoral College, and the presidency will then be decided by the popular vote. Shelley, when did your lives get so popular? They go up and down, Shelley. Sometimes, usually we get a hit of like 200 to 300 people, and then after a little while, it usually calms down, and then we hang out around 2 or 150, and then towards the end of the hour, it's usually like 80 or 70, something like that. Unconditional love for you. Should we have World War III in summer or winter? I don't think we should ever have World War III. Patsy Stone, have you thought about how big of a blow to Republicans in the House if we expanded the House? How big of a blow? I mean, I have heard people talk about expanding the House as far as like matching the growth in population. I haven't seen any data to suggest that it would benefit Democrats or hurt Republicans. But, I'll Google it. If you're saying that that's a thing, then I'll Google it. Let's see here. Bo, I completely get that joke, so you can miss me with that shit. Mello, do you think a nuclear weapon might be seen used globally in the next 4 years? I mean, I think that with Trump in charge and with a bunch of empowered despots and authoritarians like Netanyahu and Putin, that anything is on the table. It is part of the reason why I was encouraging people not to vote for Trump and to vote for Harris, because that would have been a vote for a more stable globe. And so, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that we are 100% going to use nukes, or someone's going to use nukes, or no one's going to use nukes or something like that. What I'm saying is that it's a scary time to be alive because we just don't know. We don't know who is going to be doing what. And, I don't have faith in Trump being either competent enough or non-corrupt enough or enough of a mature adult to stop something terrible like that from happening. Bean Queen Peasant says, oh, yet another political expert that thinks Kamala was actually a hood choice? I think you meant good choice. I hope you meant good choice. Or was that a Freudian slip because you're a little racist? Yeah, I mean, Kamala was a good choice. There's no two bones about it. Let's see here. Connor Chansey, while Biden hasn't said anything about the terrorist attack in New Orleans, so far it has not been ruled a terrorist attack, and also it literally just happened, so maybe we can wait until more details come in before we start jumping to conclusions. Seth45623 says, who's smarter, Kamala or Trump? Kamala. Almost every human is smarter than Trump. Ricola says, do you know who Laken Riley is? It sounds like, oh wait, no, I'm having some connection issues here. Hold on a second. Gotta reconnect. Gotta reconnect. Gotta reconnect. All right. So yeah, Laken Riley, I know who that is. That is the woman who was killed by an immigrant that the right likes to trot out as a political cudgel, and I think that it is disgusting that they do that, and it is myopic and short-sighted and pathetic. And I think that if you're bringing up Laken Riley in order to make some sort of point about how we need fewer immigrants in this country, then you've either been lied to or you are full of it. All right, I needed to fix something a second ago because my, my internet got a little futzy. Xander, let's see here. Lead Easy 60. Does America realize immigrants pay $80 billion in unclaimed taxes a year? I don't think America does realize that immigrants are a net benefit on our country. Flong/Dragon, Happy New Year to you too over on YouTube. Bean Queen Peasant, it was good, though you leftists just can't help cry racism ironically, as if whites aren't in hoods. All right, you're not here in good faith. See ya later. Okay. Puerto Rico and D.C. should have House seats. What do you think? This will expand the House and the Electoral College? Yeah, I mean, if Puerto Rico wants to be a state, they should be a state. If D.C. wants to be a state, they should be a state. And they deserve House seats and Senate representation. But, you know, centrists and Republicans do not want that because it would give more power to leftists in the government. And so if that's something that y'all want, then you need to vote for politicians who are going to do that sort of thing. Milo says the GOP will never allow Puerto Rican representation in Congress. I mean, they will have to if they don't have any political power, which is in our hands, you know. So if we can take away political power from Republicans, then Puerto Rico can become a state. Doris Mercer says you're so left. I don't view that as an insult. Gleb, who loves their country more, Kamala or Trump? Kamala. Trump doesn't give a shit about this country. He only cares about himself. Oliver Klozov says this guy, and then a laughing emoji. I don't know what your point is there, buddy. JC from LV says Republicans existing and posing credible threat forces Democrats to cater to the left. Do you get that? ? I don't know. You need to clean up that question because I have no idea what you're trying to say. That the fact that Republicans exist and pose a credible threat pushes Democrats to the left? I don't know if that is accurate at all. Let's see here. Richie Rich says Trump cares more. Of course you would say that because you're a billionaire and Trump only cares about billionaires, so of course you're spreading right-wing propaganda. Hogging says, what's your opinion on current events in South America? Unfortunately, South America is not my area of expertise. That's why I have the American flag in my thing here, because I know most specifically about American politics and a little bit of foreign politics. Joe Key says, who'd you vote for? Democrats up and down the ballot. Kai Ram Hill, can you explain a little about geopolitics and how America as a whole is actually pretty far right? I mean, you know, depending on which government you're comparing it to, then yes, absolutely, our government definitely legislates more like a right-wing government. I think what we find more than any sort of like right or left-wing leaning ideology here in America, though, is does the government of America do things that help rich people or does it help everybody else? And mostly it helps rich people. The legislation that gets passed is what rich people want as opposed to what the greater population wants. And that has to do with a bunch of different factors. Money in politics, lobbying, propaganda, there's a lot of reasons for that. But yeah, I generally agree. And as a lefty, I think that this country could stand to be a lot more left than it currently is. The Truth You Love says the America Constitution, that all we need. I don't know if that is all we need. Luigi Hero says, as long as it stays in the democratic cities. All right, no, I'm not engaging with that. James Joins says, views on DC statehood, I'm for it. Gleb says, do you think J.D. Vance is loyal to the USA? No, I think he's an opportunist, and he is, just trying to get as much money and power as he possibly can. He's completely full of shit. JC from LV, uniparties and democracy are unstable. It's happened in the States. They end up just fracturing. I don't agree with that. The Democratic Party is a big tent. And so it incorporates people that have lots of different perspectives and backgrounds and different political ideologies. The left includes, or at least it used to include people like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, and also people like Bernie Sanders and AOC. The center of the Democratic Party and the left wing of the Democratic Party are constantly going at it and trying to come up with compromises that work with everybody in the party. So if there were no Republican Party, there would still be a wide variety of political opinions in government. The Democratic Party is not a fascist organization the way that the Republican Party is, where everybody just gets in line and bends the knee behind dear leader. We have a myriad of opinion and a myriad of different types of people in the Democratic Party. So I don't believe that we need to have the Republican Party in order to have safe and responsible governance. Angel Chow says, do you think Republicans or Democrats work for rich people more? I think Republicans do by a lot, and I have a lot of data to back that up. Will, who do you think will be the DNC top candidate in 2028? Gavin Newsom. It just depends on who people vote for in the primary. I don't like this narrative that's going around that the Democratic Party picks the nominee, because the primary is where that happens. Obviously, there was an exception this year because Kamala was sort of appointed by the Biden administration after Biden won the primary. There are a lot of justifications for that, and I think it was the right thing to do. But the fact of the matter is the DNC doesn't decide who the presidential candidate is. Usually, we decide who the candidate is. Kyrem Hill says, who are your top 3 favorite politicians currently serving or previously serving? I don't know if I have a top 3, but I like a lot of left-leaning politicians. I like young progressives like Max Frost and AOC. I like Jasmine Crockett and Katie Porter. I generally think every Democrat is better than every Republican. So, I'm happy with people that are aggressive progressives, and I like young. And I like young as well. I like them young. I'm so gross. Sorry, guys. I'm a little tired from New Year's Eve party yesterday. All right, James joins. Views on the idea of having 4 parties instead of 2. I don't necessarily see the validity of expanding the number of political parties that we have as a means of adjusting the calcification or stagnation in current American politics. We have the power to change the parties to be what we want them to be. If we all just voted in primaries and midterms, then it would look more like who we actually want to run for those positions. And until we get something like ranked choice voting, additional parties are only going to serve as spoilers, and it's going to increase gamemanship in politics, and that stuff is detrimental to addressing the will of the people, in my opinion. Vedic Aesthetic says, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Green Party, we already have 4. Yeah, but Independents and the Green Party don't really compete on the national level. They really only stand to be spoiler candidates. I think what the other person was suggesting was that we have equal political parties that actually can't compete with each other. AZ Vocal Local says, is it true that more people didn't vote for Donald Trump than did? Yeah. So the way that our elections usually break down is there are the people who didn't vote, and then the people who voted for the Republican, and people who voted for the Democrat. And in every election since 1975, more people did not vote than voted for either the Republican or the Democrat. The one exception to that since 1975 is 2020, when more people voted for Biden than didn't vote. Donald Trump actually came in 3rd in the 2020 election, behind did not vote. And I think that's very interesting. Let's see here. Would ranked choice voting have actually helped? Ranked choice voting, I think, is a good system. I don't think that it's a cure-all, though. Like, we had ranked choice voting for the mayoral election in New York, and we still elected Mayor Eric Adams, and he is a corrupt piece of shit who sucks. Let's see here. Fog of War Production says, as a conservative, I'm curious to hear your perspective on how we bridge the urban-rural divide. I have some thoughts on that, Fog of War Productions, but because you are conservative, I don't know if you're gonna like them. I think the problem is propaganda, and I think a lot of that propaganda and misinformation and disinformation comes from the right. I think that people in these communities have been tricked, and they have been told that their enemies, the people who are ruining their lives, are liberals and immigrants, when in reality, the people that are ruining their lives are the billionaire class and the Republican Party, who is in league with them. And, I'm going to include any politician that is in league with the billionaire class, and there are some in the Democratic Party that are, but it is mostly the Republican Party because it is their platform to help the billionaire class and giant corporations. Like, that is what trickle-down economics is. That is what cutting regulations is. So, yeah, I think, and the fact that the Republican Party has decimated those communities by cutting funding to their education departments and made medical health deserts because doctors no longer want to operate in certain areas because they're worried about being legally liable for giving life-saving care to pregnant women. I think that only exacerbates the issue. Vedic Aesthetics says, exactly, immigration makes this country great. We need immigrants to work our jobs we don't want. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to having immigrants in this country, in addition to having someone do our shitty jobs, Immigrants to do good jobs, too, All right, Matt Henning says, LOL, school funding is at record highs while scores are at record lows. I do not know if that is accurate, Matt Henning. In fact, I believe... as a percentage of total tax spending, I believe that education spending is down. If you're going by like total number, that could be affected by population increases and inflation. So, I would say check your data on that one. XXXX says, what do you think of the New York Times reporting? I think it's mixed. I think that they tend to have a more centrist viewpoint. They try to appear as nonpartisan as possible, and that sometimes means sane washing the Republican Party and Republican candidates like Donald Trump. And I think that has a deleterious effect on our media narratives. But I also don't think that a lot of the criticism that is lobbied at traditional media is necessarily warranted. Like, for all its faults, the New York Times does have a journalistic code of ethics that right-wing news and a lot of independent news sources just don't have. They're also driven by a profit motive, of course, but the profit motive incentive for institutions like the New York Times is sometimes upholding your journalistic ethics, because what they're selling is, we are a paper of repute, and we have standards, and we will print retractions when we are wrong, and shit like that. And not every organization has the same standards. Let's see here. Ricky Bobby XRP, the New York Times is pro-Trump, y'all. You've heard one of the dumbest takes ever. There's a lot of evidence against that, Ricky Bobby XRP. You literally just heard me say that I think the New York Times goes easier on Republicans than Democrats, but to say that they're pro-Trump is myopic and not short-sighted, but obtuse, shall we say. Let's see here. Level 100 Vegan says, guess me in. No, I don't do guess or debates or anything like that. Gleb, when does a baby become a human in your opinion? Like in weeks? I think the moment that it can exist outside of the womb without assistance from the mother, it becomes a baby. Let's see here. Level 100 Vegan says, stay scared of the truth. Okay. Let's see here. Team Cali, are you sick? You look ill. I have some lighting issues because I use a green screen, and sometimes it makes my skin appear too red, and so then I try to make adjustments that can make my skin look too green. It could also be because I partied last night for New Year's Eve. Sam C. Did Trump's tax plan help the middle class more so than the top? Absolutely not. It helped mostly people on the rich. The tax cuts for the middle class and below expired in, I think, 2021 or 2022. And the tax cuts for the rich are not expiring until, I think, 2025, at which point they will be renewed because Republicans have full control of the government. Girth Brooks, I'm libertarian as am I throwing my vote away? I think so, but I also think you shouldn't be a libertarian. Why do you think that libertarian is better than Democrat or Republican? Moore says, nice day today in LA. That's cool. I'm glad, Moore. Are you in LA? Are you enjoying the nice LA weather? Let's see here. Flonk Sauce Dragon over on YouTube. One of the things that scares me most about this upcoming administration is how unpredictable they are. It's hard to tell sometimes what is real and what's just fear-mongering. Yeah, it's terrifying. You know, when you read the news, you see, you know, there are already a lot of people who are coming after Donald Trump for things that he said that he's going to do. And while I think that is completely valid, I think that some of the reporting on it needs to step back and be like, let's see what he does. Because I don't think it is worth it now that the die has been cast to start, you know, being doomerist about what could potentially happen. He said what he is going to do, and, you know, he's a liar, and he says a million different things. So there's a giant list of things that he said that he's going to do, which he may or may not do, which he may or may not be able to do. We have to see what Republicans allow to happen and what he attempts. And so, you know, while again, I think that all of that reporting is fair to say he said this, and if he does this, it will do this. But I do think some of the headlines have been a little. They put the cart before the horse, in my opinion. I don't have any examples on hand. Let's see here. Ray G, why are they flying SUV-sized drones over my roof? Let's see here. Ray G. I don't know why they're flying SUV-sized drones over your roof. Are you sure they're not planes? Girth Brooks, financially conservative, socially do whatever you want. You know, Girth Brooks, I don't agree with that because I believe that we should all help each other, and that's what tax revenue essentially does, is our tax revenue makes sure that our streets are paved and our schools are funded and our fire department is funded and we have a post office and shit like that. And also, if you look at towns that have tried to use a more libertarian model, those towns get taken over by bears, you know, and I don't think that is necessarily a good system. 98% Lune. Can Democratic Party win an election without finding some way to include anti-genocide Democrats? Without finding some ways to... There are too many negatives in your sentence, 98% Lune. I'm trying to navigate all the double negatives and try to figure out what exactly it is that you're trying to say. Are you trying to say that the right-wing government of Israel has such a strong hold over our political system that Democrats can't get a aggressively anti-right-wing Netanyahu government Democrats elected? Is that what you're saying? Austin Patter says Ronald Reagan is underrated. I disagree. I think he's overrated. Let's see here. Girth Brooks, no taxes helps everyone but Americans. No taxes helps everyone but Americans? No taxes help Girth Brooks? Are you making my point, Girth Brooks? Because it sounds like you're making my point. FA, how do you feel about Biden's foreign policy and the attack in New Orleans because of that? I don't know if we've seen any reporting that says that the attack in New Orleans was because of Biden's foreign policy. The last news report that I saw about it said that they were not considering it a terrorist attack. Perhaps there has been more recent reporting that I have not seen. And I do think that there's some good stuff about Biden's foreign policy. Like, I do think that putting pressure on the Netanyahu government to stop doing war crimes was a good thing. I do think advocating for peace between Israel and Hamas was a good thing. I think that supporting Ukraine in fighting their unprovoked war with Russia was a good thing. But I also don't think that we should have continued sending money and weapons to Israel after they continued to do war crimes and have eschewed every peace proposal. And Netanyahu is trying to, you know, further inflame this war as opposed to wind it down because it's politically advantageous for him and shit like that. But yeah, you know, I think that it's a mixed bag. I think his domestic policy was much more positive on the whole. I could give you a laundry list of great, amazing things that the Biden administration did domestically that he gets exactly zero credit for because Democrats never get any credit, Republicans never get any blame. Let's see here. Ray G. Seriously, drones the size of cars. I guess I would ask somebody who knows about that. Medrosak, concentration camps, some say to won't happen. Too expensive won't happen. I think they can happen. Thoughts? I 100% think they can happen, and I'm worried about that mostly because the border czar that Trump is appointing, a guy named Tom Human, who his name for real is an alien who is trying to make it seem like he's human. He seems like he's very aggressive about his mass deportation plans, and he's threatening to jail blue state governors and mayors, and Texas is already saying, here's some land that you can use for your concentration camps. I think that it is a strong possibility that they do something like the mass deportation plan that they have been bragging about doing all during the campaign. And additionally, you got guys like Stephen Miller and Tom Human in the administration who were fine with the family separation policy that happened during the first Trump administration. And that thing was monstrous. It was unconscionable. It was barbaric. I can't think of enough negative words. There aren't enough negative words in my thesaurus to meet how disastrous that policy was. We created a generation of children with fucking PTSD, ripping these children away from their parents, the worst thing that you can possibly do to a human being, both the parent and the child. You threw the children in fucking concentration camps where they were fucking eating mush like they're in Oliver Twist. And then they lost the parents in whatever country they deported them to. So now we have like 1,000+ orphans here in this country who are, in addition to not knowing where their parents are, traumatized from the experience of being ripped away from their parents. And they're planning on doing that again and more. Like, they have no remorse about that. And you would think that that would have affected people's voting decisions, but I guess it didn't. And you guys have all heard my reasons for this. It's all propaganda and incumbency bias. So yeah, it's complete and utter bullshit. All right, Jimmy H. I was waiting to see how ridiculous you were going to be, and damn, you didn't disappoint. Well, yeah, I'm not ridiculous. I'm just speaking the truth. I don't know what you're talking about. Sean, what do you think about Marco Rubio? He's a spineless weenie who has absolutely no ethos. He appears to be a bit of a hawkish on foreign relations, and I don't like that. But he does represent a more centrist normal wing of the Republican Party than MAGA, which doesn't say much because MAGA is, fully psychotic. So yeah, I guess it's better that he's there than somebody like fucking the My Pillow guy, I guess. But yeah, I do not like Marco Rubio at all. Let's see here. QWeez TVZ says, should our politicians be able to have dual citizenship? I don't know. I think it's good to have little mechanisms here and there in order to, encourage our politicians to be, to care about America more than other countries. And I think that having dual citizenship is kind of like having one foot out of the country that you're supposedly governing. So yeah, I guess that I would support that policy, but, I'm not really dogmatic about it. I'd say I'm like 65-35 pro our politicians should not have dual citizenships. Liam says, who'd you vote for? Democrats up and down the ballot. Kyram Hill, Marco Rubio is the most sane and qualified out of the whole cabinet. Yeah, but again, that's not saying much. Let's see here. DGab4, thoughts on Republicans reporting 320,000 missing immigrant children. I've seen this 300,000 number bandied about in right-wing circles, and I haven't dug too deep into it. There's a lot of right-wing propaganda that you have to do a lot of research to figure out what they're talking about because it's kind of insane, some of it. All I know is that I generally distrust information that comes out of the right-wing sphere. I am confident that this point has been debunked. Robbie Wood says, who'd you vote for? Democrats up and down the ballot. Let's see here. Kyram Hill says, yes, trust me, he's my senator. I know we don't like him. I don't remember who you were talking about, but that's pretty darn funny. Oh, Marco Rubio. Yeah, he sucks. Let's see here. Beta Rome says, he looks like he speaks like a Yahtzee, yeah. Are you calling me a Yahtzee? Yahtzee is weird because it almost sounds like you're saying Nazi, but it also could be a Jewish slur. I have no idea. Vedic Aesthetics says, they aren't missing. They are not reporting back to their judges. I don't know anything about this story again. I do not dip into right-wing propaganda all that much. IK0409 says, tell me, what does critical race theory mean? Critical race theory is a complicated, graduate school level course that describes how the mechanisms of the U.S. government have the knock-on effects of marginalizing different communities, be they LGBTQ or immigrant or person of color, etc. I find the argument in critical race theory to be extremely persuasive, especially if you look around and see how marginalized communities are faring these days and throughout the history of this country. But yeah, I also think that the rhetoric that came out of the right around critical race theory was complete and utter bullshit and was an example of right-wing fear-mongering in order to score political points. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Big J says, I guarantee this host will be a Trump supporter in no time. I'll take that bet. I will bet you $1 billion that I will never be a Trump supporter. Fucking miss me with that shit, Big J. Put your fucking money where your mouth is. There is no amount of money that you can bet me that is high enough for me. You will never scare me away from this. I am clear-eyed. I am bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about this fella. I know everything about him. I know he's a piece of shit. I will never like him. But yeah, put your money where your mouth is, man. Fucking put some money on the table. Pearl Harbor, what is your opinion of Japan's war crimes in World War II? They were never punished for. I mean, I think it's difficult to sort of like finger wave at the Japanese for doing war crimes when we dropped 2 atomic bombs on their cities, killing like lots and lots of civilians. I don't know the actual numbers, but I'm sure it's in the hundreds of thousands or millions. But yeah, I think that everybody who does war crimes should be prosecuted, regardless of which country they are. Let's see here. Fog of War Productions, what do you feel like conservatives misunderstand the most about liberals? I guess there's a difference between what online lefties say and what Democratic politicians do. Like, a lot of the discourse that I see people talking about, like why they don't like Democrats or whatever, it is just whatever, anonymous random lefty on Twitter has said versus actual policy. Whereas my criticisms of the Republican Party are all policies that the actual elected politicians have done and said. I could scroll through the muck and find shitty things that online right-wingers have said and have advocated for, but I don't view that to be a productive exercise, whereas the right has successfully smeared the left to say that the biggest wackadoo on the internet represents the Democratic Party, and that's just not even a little bit true. All right, let's see here. QWeez2VZ says, what's the point of taxes if the government can just inflate our currency? I don't know what those two things actually have to do with each other. The point of taxes is to use money on things that benefit the general public, making sure that our roads are paved, our schools are funded, that we have a fire department and and social services and things like that, and that industries that are really beneficial but expensive are accessible to people. So like, subsidizing plane travel or subsidizing green technology or public transit and things like that. Iv Oi, hey, good to see you again, Iv Oi, over on Twitch. Do you think the Republicans in the House will vote for Mike Johnson as the speaker again? I don't know. I've seen a lot of reporting about the chaos of the infighting in the Republican Party. I tend to find a little bit of that reporting to be hyperbolic, because if there's one thing that we know about the Republican Party, it's that they get in line. And so I'll believe it when I see it. Trump has endorsed Mike Johnson. Trump is ultimately the person who controls the MAGA voting base. But if we're at that point in Republican politics where they have decided we don't need our voters anymore, and that is a legitimate concern because Republicans have already started talking about using the mechanisms of government to make it so that they never need to get votes ever again, and whether they get away with that or not is an open question, but that is their intention. Then I would say maybe Mike Johnson's job is a little, in question, if the influence of the Musk and Ramaswamy wing of the Republican Party is powerful enough and, and again, the Republicans decide just to completely eschew their viewers, their voters, then yeah, I think Mike Johnson's job would be in danger. But, unless they are making that call, and Republicans have done this a lot in the past and it hasn't paid off, where they're like, all right, I guess we haven't I guess we haven't fully infiltrated our, our propaganda scheme, and we lost elections that we should have won and stuff like that. But yeah, they often operate like they don't need to deliver for the citizens because they're not worried about getting votes from us, which I find very concerning. But yeah, I think that the fact that Trump has already endorsed Mike Johnson and is basically signaling like this is where I want my base to be, focused. I think that suggests that his job is safe. But again, nobody knows what's going to happen. Let's see here. Isaiah Urena says opinion on Ukraine. I think Ukraine is a sovereign nation. I'm sure it's great. I've never been there. And I don't think that Russia should have invaded it. And because Russia illegally invaded it, I think it is right that America has been assisting them. Let's see here. Okay. LOL, Donald Trump switched his view on immigration that Elon Musk money seems to be working for real. Yeah, I'm not saying that there's no influence, Will. I'm just saying that Mike Johnson for speaker is one example where Trump has put his foot down right now. And, again, there's all this reporting about the infighting in the Republican Party. I guess we will just see if the pressure from Musk and Ramaswamy either gets Trump to change his mind about that or gets House Republicans to change their votes around that. It's an open question because, again, this administration is going to be chaotic and shitty for everybody. Let's see here. Beta Rome says airplanes, lines, and Amazon delivery services. That's not a question. Brad Shu says, what exactly did Democrats deliver to their citizens over the last 4 years? Oh boy. I'm so glad you asked that question because I've only got 88 viewers right now and I got plenty of time to answer it. Okay, so here we go. Trump caused the inflation that everybody's been suffering over for the last 4 years. The Biden administration brought it down from 9% to 2.4%. The Biden administration passed the first bipartisan infrastructure bill in over a decade, the first bipartisan gun control legislation in over 2 decades. The CHIPS and Science Act, which brought high-level tech manufacturing back to the United States. The PACT Act, which increased health benefits for veterans. Lina Khan at the FEC was breaking up monopolies like we haven't done since before Reagan. President Biden and his National Labor Review Board, NLRB, was more pro-union than we've had since before the Reagan administration. Biden walked the picket line with the union, and additionally, he secured the rail workers union the paid sick days that they wanted to strike for. There was the IRA, which, in addition to bringing inflation back down from 9% to 2.4%, was the largest investment in green energy in our nation's history. It has been transforming, small towns by bringing good, clean, safe, green jobs back to areas that were in population decline. Additionally, he cut healthcare costs by capping the cost of insulin and asthma inhalers, capping the cost of insurance premiums, of medication premiums for seniors, and reducing healthcare premiums for everybody else. There's still a lot of work that needed to be done because the Trump administration fucked up so many things over the past 4 years. There were a lot of fires to put out, but we were trending in the right direction. The stock market was at a record high. Crime was at a record low. Yeah, a lot of things were trending in the right direction. The last piece of the puzzle was going to be monopolization and bringing down prices. But, the American people fell for the propaganda, and so they did not vote for Democrats. Let's see here. Okay. Thoughts on Sam Hyde's address to Elon Musk? I have not seen that, unfortunately. World Stewart says, you're way off base. How do you figure? Michael C., how do Republicans not know these facts? Nobody knows these facts, Michael. This is the reason why there were 8 million fewer voters this election cycle than before. It's the reason why Harris did and Democrats up and down the ballot did so poorly, is nobody knows these things that the Democrats did for them because most of the voters that we needed get their news on social media, and social media was not pushing the positive things that Democrats had accomplished for the American people. They were pushing pro-Republican propaganda. They were pushing anti-democratic propaganda. They were publishing cynical don't vote propaganda. They were pushing cynical both parties of the same propaganda, like all that shit that depressed turnout and made it so that the election had the results that we saw. K. Kyra Gun 2 says, should we have a recount or no? So the swing states have already done, I forget the word for it, it's called like a limited recount or something, where they randomly choose certain districts or certain boxes to do recounts of, just to make sure that things are above board. It is a statistically sound way of conducting a recount, even if it is not, what do you call it? If it does not recount every single ballot. It appears as though there was nothing wrong that happened. It appears as though Donald Trump won the election fair and square. So, I would love it if that was not the case, but that is the case, unfortunately. And I would love to see some reporting that it's not the case, but I haven't seen it reporting that it's not the case. Lisa G. Marie, Twitter was completely compromised bias towards Trump and all of the other social media platforms as well. People think that the problem is only Twitter, but it's literally everywhere. The Republican Party is in league with the richest people in the world, and it is really easy to manipulate all social media if you have a lot of money, which, again, the Republican Party has. Let's see here. Danny Romano says, when did the Democrats become so corrupt? Did it start with the Clintons? The Republican Party is way more corrupt than the Democratic Party, so... I don't really, I guess I hear your question. I just disagree with the premise of it. There are definitely corrupt politicians in both parties, but there's a difference in scale. There are more corrupt politicians on the Republican side. The corrupt politicians on the Republican side are more corrupt, and it is the platform of the Republican Party is pro-corruption. So you can miss me with that shit. Let's see here. David, Louisiana, y'all have been wrong for over 8 years and you have still learned nothing. What do you think that we have been wrong about, David? Can you be more specific? All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Why? What's your stance on abortion? I think that it should be safe and legal and available. I think that the Dobbs decision, aka overturning Roe versus Wade, aka returning abortion legality to the states, was a terrible decision and has resulted in harm, uncountable harm, immeasurable harm to women all across the country. Danny Romano says, is liberalism indeed a mental illness? Nope. QWeez2VZ says, it really more or less corrupt, or are we just the fools? I do a little check every now and again, a couple times a year, to make sure that I am not the one who has the wool pulled over their eyes. And, I double check my facts and I get my news from multiple sources. But the two key points that I find to be sort of like the shorthand for no, I'm not the crazy one, are climate change and trickle-down economics. We know that trickle-down economics is not working, has not worked. Income inequality is worse than it was in the Gilded Age, which is an age that we named for how bad the income inequality was back then. It's worse now, and the problems that trickle-down economics was supposed to solve have not been solved. The rich have never been richer, the poor have never been poorer, and that is still Republican policy, though. Why is it still Republican policy if we know it doesn't work? Why? So yeah, the Republican Party is totally full of shit and in league with billionaires if they are continuing to push a system that we know does not work, that literally only helps rich people. What other evidence do you need? And then climate change. We can all look out our window and see that climate change is a thing. We know. I lived in New York City for 20 years. There was significantly more snow during the winter time in my first 5 years than the last 5 years. And Republican politicians are still out there saying that climate change is a hoax, or it's not as bad as people think it is, or it's natural, or it's not caused by humans, blah, blah, blah. It's bullshit. Climate scientists are fucking 10 out of 10 for predicting what was going to happen. They tempered their predictions because they didn't want people to think that they were being, fucking running around with their, fucking too doomerist, too catastrophic. And it turns out that, that their conservative predictions, the only thing that was wrong about them was that they were conservative. They should have just told people what they actually thought was going to happen. Regardless, they called it. They called it perfectly, and yet there's still Republican politicians out there saying, well, I don't know if the science is in on it, and I question some of this data, blah, blah, blah. It's total bullshit. So yeah, you can miss me with that shit. I am not the one who's crazy. I am not the one who is being conned. Let's see here. Yeah, to say that crime is low when a homeless woman was burned alive in a subway is quite delusional. Yeah, crime is low, even though that one thing happened. You realize that is what we call anecdotal evidence It is just one thing, when what I'm talking about is statistical data that covers the entire country. You know, we can all find isolated incidents of things to prove our point, but that's just not the case. Joe, it's like that one video of the dude hitting his broken TV with a hammer and it fixes itself. I don't know what that is in reference to. Anthony Marcello says, what is the political issue that matters to you the most? I mean, income inequality and climate change, I think, are the two that are the most important to me. But I think that we're not going to see any substantive change in those policies until we address electoral reform. Because right now we essentially give millions of votes to Republican candidates by allowing things like gerrymandering and the unfair Senate map and the Electoral College. And until we address those electoral issues and additionally money in politics, then Republicans are going to continue to have an outweighed influence in our government, and we're not going to be able to make the kind of substantive change to income inequality or the healthcare system or the environment that I think are the most pressing issues. And tied in with that is managing our media in a way where people are actually getting accurate, factual information that is not biased towards assisting Republican politicians and hurting Democratic politicians or decreasing voter engagement and turnout. My Disc is Floppy over on Twitch says, after today's attacks, we should ban trucks. No one should possess assault trucks. That's pretty funny. My Disc is Floppy. We should also send $100 zillion to Israel. I know you're being a jerk. My Disc is Floppy. I just can't tell what kind of jerk you're trying to be because your stuff is a little over the top, shall we say. Iv Oi over on Twitch. Jerome Powell, Fed chair, said he won't step down. Does Trump have the authority to fire him? He 100% does not, and I really enjoyed Jerome Powell in that press conference just being like, it is not legally allowed for him to fire me. So he can try, but it is not legally allowed. Now, will he be able to get away with it because Republicans have full control of the government and also the Supreme Court is extremely right-wing right now? I don't know. But Jerome Powell is not stepping down, and it is not legally allowable for Trump to get rid of him. Let's see here. Vedic Aesthetic, you just don't care about facts or evidence. It looks like you're talking to somebody else. Queezvies, you gotta tell me how to pronounce your name, Queezvies, because I get stuck every single fucking time. Wasn't Putin supposed to disappear like 15 times now? I thought he was sick. I mean, there's no credible reporting about this stuff. It's all speculation. And, he had a hand tremor and, a hand tremor. And people were saying that, Trump was in cognitive decline and was sundowning in his first administration, so like, I don't know how long that shit's supposed to last, but, you got to take all that stuff with a massive grain of salt. Alexia, do you like Trump or Harris? I like Harris and I hate Trump. Jim Pimpin, could Bill Clinton beat Trump in a fist fight? I don't know. Doesn't seem like a productive political question. BK, would you agree that both sides of our government needs to be gutted? I don't, for two reasons. Number one, I find that the Democratic Party is leagues better than the Republican Party, so to say that both sides need to be gutted kind of puts them on equal footing. I consider that a false equivalency, and I have a lot of data to back that up. I'd be happy to get into it if you want me to go into more specifics. But additionally, we already have the mechanisms to quote-unquote, gut our political parties, and it's called elections. And if people just voted in primaries, then we would have politicians that reflect our beliefs better. But at the moment, the highest our voter turnout was in 2020 and during the presidential election, and it was still only 65%, which is fucking pathetic. And it is worse in the midterms, and it is worse in the primaries, and it is worse in special elections. So, Americans who don't vote, who want to complain about shit, you can fucking miss me with that. Especially if you're saying shit like, I just hate that we're having the same politicians shoved down our throats, as though the mechanism does not exist for us to vote for whoever we want. Alex Nieves, says, same reason people get mad because no term limits, but it's not like they vote themselves in. Yeah, vote for politicians that are down with term limits, and you will get term limits. That's how the government works. Overstreet Family Crew, good to see you again. There's no way to prevent things that happened at NOLA, so do you see them starting to outlaw gatherings? I don't. The Trump administration has said, both in his first 4 years in office and when he was campaigning, that he is hostile towards protesters. And he has suggested things like shooting protesters or deporting protesters. And so I think that's probably a greater threat to people who are congregating in public places than, random acts of terror. And again, I don't know if this has been classified as an act of terrorism yet. I haven't seen the most recent reporting. And the press conference that I saw the police chief doing said that they had no reason to believe that it was terrorism at this point. Let's see here. The Thin Black Duke. Do you think Trump will actually enact his tariffs, or is it just yapping? I don't know, because again, he's a liar. He says a bunch of bullshit. I think the most likely scenario is that he does enact the tariffs, but individual companies will bribe Trump to waive tariffs for them, and therefore those companies will be able to charge cheaper prices than every other company and increase their monopolization over the American capitalist system. That is my prediction, but again, nobody knows what's going to happen because there's a lot of infighting in the Republican Party right now. And, whether the centrists or the MAGAs or the Musk wing of the party wins is completely up for debate. The billionaire class maybe doesn't want tariffs. Maybe they don't give a shit. But yeah, there are a lot of interested parties in here who are going to try to get their, what's the expression? They try to get their 30 pieces of silver or whatever. Alex Nieves says waive tariffs. More like use the taxpayer money to subsidize the tariffs. Yeah, that's also an option. I do not put it past the Trump administration to steal our tax dollars, because he did that a lot during his first 4 years. Queezvies, again, tell me how to pronounce your name. You're driving me crazy. Queezvies2VZ says, realistically, what percentage of votes do you think is corrupt? I think you have to be more specific, because I'm not really sure what you mean. Do you mean, do you think there are citizens who are voting corruptly? Are you asking me what votes that politicians make are based on corrupt bases? It could be anything. Let's see here. Nico the German Shepherd says Trump won, America won. I don't really care if you have different opinions than me, but you have to ask a question, otherwise I'm going to block you. See, look, it just happened. I just blocked you, and I didn't have any control over that. Let's see here. First time chats over on Twitch. Miniature Blaze. I heard China has a new 6th gen jet. We should send a bajillion dollars. Alright, I'm ignoring you guys officially. Let's see here. Alright. Billionaire CEO, do you agree that Israel is committing genocide in Palestine right now, funded by the US? Okay, so here's the thing. The International Criminal Court, the ICC, has not found, and the UN, I believe, have not found that the Israeli government is doing a genocide. They have found that they're doing war crimes. And I don't know what the value is of people on the left insisting that it's a genocide when two, intentioned, objective organizations like the ICC and the UN have made it clear that they do not believe it to be a genocide, but they do believe that war crimes have been committed. I think war crimes are bad enough for us to justify stop sending Israel money and weapons. I don't think that we need to be insisting that it's a genocide when war crimes are literally right there. And yeah, I don't believe that we should be continuing to send money and weapons to Israel, because again, they've been doing war crimes. If we were also sending money and weapons to Hamas, I think that we should stop doing that. Because Hamas also did war crimes, but we're not sending money and weapons to Hamas. We're only sending money and weapons to Israel. Let's see here. Mr. Nobody 351, what do you think about the undocumented migrants in 2024? I have no problem with migrants, documented or not. Migrants are a net positive on the country. B. Frisk says, but Palestine is terrorist group. Palestine is not a terrorist group. Palestine is a country. Palestinians are citizens of that country. Hamas is not technically in control of Palestine. Technically, it's a governing body called the Palestinian Authority, but Hamas essentially has control over Palestine. And Hamas is a terrorist organization. But again, the people of Palestine are just regular-ass people like you and me who are trying to live their fucking lives, but Hamas and Israel are waging a war on each other and committing war crimes on each other's population, and I think they're both wrong for doing that. Dylan, do you believe we should have open borders? I don't believe we should have open borders, and I also don't believe that we ever had open borders anytime in recent memory, and all of the caterwauling that is happening on the right, saying that Biden opened the borders, is complete and utter bullshit. Overstreet Family Crew, do you think this term will wake up the Democratic Party to come out and vote? I don't. If you look at the disaster of the first Trump administration, yes, we had higher voter participation in 2020 than we have had, I think, maybe ever. I need to double check the data on that. But then that was still only 65%. So I think that part of the reason why we had shitty voter turnout in 2024 is because of propaganda that was being spread on social media. I do not believe that problem is going away anytime soon, and so I do not think that, however shitty this administration is, that the information environment is going to be, is going to exist in a way that will give people a clear impression of how shitty the Trump administration is, and also that voting is the way to solve that. Because again, billionaires are fully in control of narratives on social media. It is really easy to manipulate social media if you have a lot of money, and the Republican Party is in league with the billionaires who have all the money, So, yeah, they're just going to continue to spread the propaganda narratives that Trump administration isn't that bad, or that voting doesn't do anything, or whatever. And, especially since the Republican Party is in full control of both the government and the Supreme Court, and they are hostile towards voting rights. They're going to make it harder for people to vote. So I think all of those factors together are going to make it so that our voter participation will probably remain stagnant over the next couple of years. I hope I'm wrong about that. And if I have my druthers, people will listen to things that I'm saying, and it will encourage them to vote. But I do not believe that I have the power to get 85 million people who were not voting to vote. Maybe y'all can help me with that by making my channel so popular I could become the fucking Joe Rogan of fucking, liberal live streaming, and I will get the 85 million non-voting Americans to vote, and our country will be completely transformed. Let's make that the project, everybody. Let's make me telling people to vote the thing that gets 85 million people to vote. Are you with me? Are you with me, everybody? This is where the revolution starts. I don't know, man. What the fuck? Dylan, why do you think Rogan left the Democratic Party? I think there's probably a bunch of reasons for that. I think probably he got old and more conservative. Sometimes people just get older and then go fucking completely insane, like that comedian, Dennis Miller used to be a good progressive, and then he just lost his fucking mind at one point and became a hard right-wing conservative. It just happens to people sometimes. The fact that Joe Rogan is also insanely rich means that his incentives align with the rich. And his life is different now that he is an extremely rich person. So yeah, I think he probably, his brain got pickled by propaganda the way that a lot of people's brains get pickled by propaganda. But yeah, I don't think that the Democratic Party did anything to Joe Rogan to make him be like, I think Republicans are better. I think he just fell for it. I just think he fell for the propaganda. I think he got conned along with a lot of other people. Mike BTC says he supported Sanders. Yeah, he did. And it's really easy to look at that as evidence that the Democratic Party would just be winning elections if they just were the Bernie wing. But the fact of the matter is that Bernie lost the primary in 2016 by a lot of votes, and he lost the primary in 2020 by also a lot of votes. Now, did the DNC put their finger on the scale to help the more centrist candidates, Biden and Clinton? Absolutely they did, but I do not believe that their influence made the difference. It wasn't a close election in either situation. And you can say that that's because people were voting politically, they were worried that Bernie wouldn't win. So even though they liked him better, they were voting for Biden. I don't know. But it appears to me that the country is more conservative than we want it to be. And that even candidates that I like better, like progressives like Warren and Bernie, are not going to win in a national election. We have no evidence that they would. And especially now that the media environment has been so thoroughly pickled by, billionaire money and Republican propaganda, I don't know. I don't know. The socialist moniker that so many people on the left wear proudly, myself included, it's toxic. It is toxic to a large percentage of Americans, whether you are Cubans who were escaping Castro and living in Florida right now, who just believe that socialism and communism is bad, or you are somebody who lived through the Red Scare and you just have that wiring still in your brain. Yeah, communism bad, socialism bad. Vote against anything that is not that. So yeah, we have seen no evidence that that candidates that are that progressive win. And if you look at state races and city races, sometimes the centrist Democrat does better. Sometimes the extreme left-wing Democrat does better. Like, there's no consistency there. And I often find that people who are arguing that the party would do better electorally if it was just more left or center, it's just what they want, And like I said, I'm a progressive. I'm a lefty. I want the progressive wing to be the wing of the Democratic Party, but I haven't seen any substantive evidence to suggest that we would just be dominating electoral politics if we just, were just the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. I'd love to be proven wrong on that, because again, those are my policies that I like, the progressive policies. Iv Oy says, how do you feel about Musk currently staying at Mar-a-Lago? I mean, I think that him and Donald Trump are going to start hating each other soon, and I hope they're miserable with each other. I think that it is demonstrative of the corruption of the Trump administration that he is so clearly in league with a corrupt, fucking billionaire who has been using his money and power to do fucking crimes and steal money from people and, fuck over unions and shit like that. Like, you would think that would be important to people. But again, propaganda is a hell of a drug, and people were not focused on that. They were focused on different things that made them either not vote or vote for Republicans. Overstreet Family Crew, yes, but do you believe the Republican Party will stay united through the term? I don't. I would love it if this factionalism and infighting continued throughout the Trump campaign and was a bulwark against their worst impulses. But I don't have my faith in that. I put my faith in things like the Mueller investigation and, Merrick Garland investigations that were happening and the Georgia cases and, the legal system in general to save us from, this shit. And they didn't. And they never did. The end result of all of this is that it almost always comes down to the voters. I forget what your original question was. Let's see here. So I have rested my laurels too many times on reporting that said that Trump was going to get impeached soon or Republicans were jumping ship. If you look at January 6th, there were a lot of Republicans, including hardcore Republican influencers like Ben Shapiro, who were saying this is the end of MAGA and, regular Republicans aren't putting up with this shit anymore and corporations were ditching the Republican Party because of it, et cetera, and look at where we are now, So I don't put my faith that the factionalism is going to save us. I hope it does. I would love it if it did. Please tear apart the Republican Party. Please. It is a parasite. It is a cancer. It is a fucking infection. Get rid of it. And again, I usually say this a lot during my live streams. I don't think I've said it yet today, but I'm not talking about Republican voters. Republican voters are not our enemy. It is the Republican politicians and the billionaire class. Republican voters, I'm sure there are a lot of good people in that group who just got conned. They just got tricked, or they're living in a bubble. They don't get the right information from the right places. So yeah, those people are not your enemies. It is the billionaire class and the Republican politicians who are in league with them. Bless you says, being political is going to guarantee you never blow up as a comic. Well, then I guess I never blow up as a comic. Alec Crees says, it's the party, not the people. I'm not really sure what you mean by that, Alec. Queez says, I need that Hunter Biden money. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Bullets raining. Dude's got Stein in his name. Take his word with salt. So that's anti-Semitism, everybody. If you guys want to report Bullets Raining 8 for anti-Semitism, I would fucking love that. That's great. I'm doing that now as I speak. Let's see here. Hate speech. Fantastic. Submitted. But yeah, that shit doesn't fly, man. I used to have a lot more patience for anti-Semitism because it was such an antiquated form of prejudice, but it has just been growing and growing and growing. So now I'm back on that fuck you for your anti-Semitism train. I don't fucking put up with that shit anymore. Overstreet Family Crew. Have you ever met Cat Williams? Who's your favorite comedian you've met? Ooh, that's a really good question. I haven't met Cat Williams. Favorite comedian that I've met? Oh boy, that's a good one. Lisa Traeger. I'm a big fan of Emma Williman. Kristen Key is a friend of mine who I'm a huge fucking fan of. These aren't like necessarily famous people. I met digitally. I met Gilbert Godfrey before he passed away. I hosted an online show for him. I hosted an online show for Nikki Glazer. I'm a big fan of hers as well. But yeah, these are not people that I've met in real life or that I'm friends with or anything like that. Kristen Key is actually a friend of mine, and I think that she is fucking one of the best comics working today. I think everybody should be following Kristen Key. I think that she needs to be fucking famous. I think she needs to be like Seinfeld famous. Let's see here. And make sure to block the account. If you block the comment, it could be bad for your live. Did I? I don't fucking know. Well, I guess we'll see. I did what I could, you know. Let's see here. B. Frisk says, why is Trump and Elon brain dead? Any explanation behind this? You know, they're rich fucking old assholes. You know, like they're the child of privilege. They never had to fucking work for anything in their lives. They've stolen everything that they have accumulated. You know, I don't think that there was any noodle there for them to not lose. I think they never fucking had it together. All right, I got to start wrapping up, everybody, because I really want to enjoy my day off before I go back on the road tomorrow. I'm going to do my outro, and then I'm going to do a couple extra questions because I really like ending on a question as opposed to my outro. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank everybody for the comments, for the shares, for the gifts. I appreciate any support that you guys can give me, whether it is the free kind, like shares and likes and going to my videos and liking them and sharing them and leaving comments. If you have the ability to provide financial support as well by joining my Patreon, I have exactly 0 Patreon followers. I'd love to have some. You can go to my Spring store and get some shit. You can send me gifts on TikTok or whatever. You can subscribe if you're a Twitch person, which I think is free if you're an Amazon subscriber, but it also gives me a little bit of money, which is nice. But I know that we're living through a cost of living crisis, so, you know, I'm not going to insist that anybody send me money that they cannot afford to give me. I don't do this for the money. I do it because I like it. My normal streaming schedule is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That is in flux right now because I am currently in the middle of a tour. Like tomorrow, I'm not going to be able to live stream. It was on my calendar. I just had to delete it because I'm leaving for Santa Barbara at 10 o'clock in the morning, so can't do my live stream. Maybe I'll do it later. We'll see what time I get into the hotel and shit like that. But yeah, you can check out my streaming schedule on my website, jarrettberenstein.com. Tour dates are also on there. Links to all my shit, like my Patreon and my podcasts and all that crap is there. So if you like my stuff, you should go there. Give me a follow. You can also, if you have any questions that I was not able to answer here, you can DM me. My DMs are open. And also you can email me through my website, jarrettberenstein.com. Please do not be despondent. Please do not be cynical. Please do not disengage from politics, because if you do, then the bad people, then they win. They want us to be despondent. They want us to think that voting doesn't do anything. If voting didn't do anything, they wouldn't be working so hard to get us to stop doing it. If you don't know where to go, if you don't know which organizations are the ones that are doing the good work, Run for Something is a great organization. I volunteer with them. They sent me this great t-shirt. Vote Save America is a great organization as well. Follow AOC on social media. It seems like she's got her finger on the pulse of the Resistance 2.0. And yeah, do the work, guys. If we all do the work, then the work gets done. And if we all do a little bit of work, then nobody has to do a lot of work. We get through these next 4 years by helping each other and helping these great causes. Nobody lets go of anyone's hand. I think that's all my business as far as like things that I say in my outro. Just trying to remember. Yeah, you know, thank you guys for being here and thank you for engaging. All right, let's get to some of these final questions. Iv Oi over on Twitch. You have a magic wand and can control who the Democrats put forward in 2028. But you can't control the outcome. Who would you pick? That is a really good question. You know, so here's the thing. I don't love the political strategy thinking of a lot of voters. Like if you talk to voters during the 2020 election, they will tell you that they liked candidate X, but that they were voting for candidate Y because they thought they had a better chance of winning. The same thing happened in 2008 with Obama, where, you know, if you polled communities of African Americans, they would tell you that they were not supporting Obama because they were worried that America was too racist to elect him. When he won the Iowa caucus, Iowa is largely a white state, it proved to the African American population of America that he could win over white voters, and suddenly he started polling way, way better with black voters. I think that a lot of voters do that. I think a lot of voters try to couch their vote in who they think they can win. Now, recognizing that we live in a country that has a problem with propaganda, that has a problem with its media spheres assisting electing right-wing politicians, or discouraging people from voting, that we also have a fair amount of racism and misogyny in this country, and that sometimes people vote with their eyeballs instead of their noodles. I think a safe candidate would be somebody like Gavin Newsom. He's very handsome, and he's a good public speaker, and he's very photogenic, and he's good on camera, and he's a white fella, and so I think that's a very safe choice. But is that like my ideal person? Definitely not. There's a lot of shit about the way that he has run, that he's run California, that I don't agree with. I'm a progressive, so anything that's more centrist or corporate friendly, or does not appear to be doing the aggressive progressive work that I want to get done, kind of rubs me the wrong way. But he seems to be a very capable politician, and so. I think that he is a perfectly reasonable choice. I think that if America decided that he was the safest choice and then he won the primary, I would be completely fine with that, because I kind of agree that he is a safe choice. But again, it's up to the voters. People should vote in primaries and elect the person that you want. That's what I think. All right, let's see here. Oz says, what's the propaganda? There's a lot of propaganda. There's so much propaganda. And there's propaganda that says that Republicans are great and Democrats are bad. There's propaganda that says that both parties are the same, so voting doesn't do anything. There's propaganda that says that if you vote, you're complicit in a corrupt system. There's propaganda that says that by not voting, you're actually sending a message to the political parties that you're not happy, and so it's very productive to not vote because you're making your voice heard, which is bullshit and a lie. There's propaganda that says that, Trump's the things that Trump lied about that you don't like are actually the truth, but the things that he lied about that you do like are actually the lies. So you only need to, the thing that he liked that you said, that was the true thing, and not the thing that he said that you didn't like. That was the lie. That he was being sarcastic, there's tons. There's so much propaganda that it is quicker to say what isn't propaganda. Let's see here. Anima, everyone send the team heart and comment at least once per live. Thank you, Anima. I appreciate that. Let's see here. Oz, that's kind of the problem we wear over politicians. I'm afraid that you are going to have to clean up that comment, Oz, because I do not know what you are talking about. Larry, 1971, who's to blame for opening the border to terrorists? The border was never opened during the Biden administration. Congratulations, you fell for propaganda. Tim OJ69, why would I ask you? You don't know shit. I actually know a lot of shit. I don't know if you've listened to any of the things that I've said, but, the one thing you can't say is that I'm not well informed. Let's see here. Constitution is awesome, says Biden has left the country in worse shape since Buchanan. What should Trump do to fix Biden's mess? I think that you are misinformed. Constitution is awesome because Trump is the one who left the country in a dumpster fire. I don't know if you remember 2020 when we were all locked in our fucking apartments and crime was on the rise and inflation was on the rise and the stock market crashed and a pandemic was fucking sweeping across the globe. A preventable pandemic was sweeping across the globe. And then supply chains got fucked and the tariffs increased the cost of everything and private equity started buying up all the houses because of COVID. We put, the interest rates down to zero, so private equity was borrowing money for free and buying houses to force us all to be renters. Like, I don't know if you... I think you missed all that. Did you miss all that? Bree 3.0. Hey, Jared. Happy New Year and great show in Sacramento last week. Thank you, Bree. I appreciate you. Thank you for being at the show. 7-Eleven, it is what it is, says it's going to be a good 4 years. That is not my prediction, but, I wouldn't be mad if it was. Augustinian Alexander says, but every socialist is some privileged, rich hypocrite like Hassan Piker. I mean, I don't love everything that Hassan Piker says. I have a lot of problems with his political ideology, but I don't view him as a hypocrite necessarily. Just because somebody comes from like a good family doesn't mean that they are not allowed to have progressive socialist views, Russell Brand is another example of a former progressive who went completely fucking insane and is now a right-wing psychopath. But he made the point that when he was poor and he talked about income inequality, people said he was just jealous. And then when he was rich and was complaining about income inequality, they said that he was a hypocrite. So it seems like the problem is just speaking up against income inequality. So yeah, you can miss me with that bullshit. WazaFlow11 says, what's your 9 to 5? I don't have a 9 to 5. I'm extremely privileged to be able to work as a touring stand-up comedian, and then I'm able to do these live streams, you know? Let's see here. Doug Ford, we're shut down power to over 1 million Americans if Trump poses tariffs on Canada. I mean, that is something that has been said. I don't know if it is 100% going to happen. I don't know if that is an accurate prediction. All right, let's see here. Do you have a New Year good luck meal? Making sauerkraut. No, I don't. Flonk Sauce Dragon. Let's see here. Vedic Aesthetic. I love the fact that Trump is so racist at Obama that he reversed his policies like the pandemic. Yeah, you know, he's an idiot. He is a vindictive, petty child. And the fact that the majority of Americans did not see that, did not motivate them to vote against him is evidence of how strong propaganda is. Let's see here. Tay, you should watch Grifter's video on YouTube. He's the only one that exposes him as a hypocrite. Grifters is a guy who exposes Hassan as a hypocrite. Is that what you're saying? B for Square says, who is your favorite president in recent history over the last 20 years? I'd say it's a toss-up between Obama and Biden. Biden was able to get a lot more progressive shit done because he was president in 2020 instead of 2008, and also because he had a lot of goodwill from being in Congress since 1854 or whatever. He's so fucking old. And also he had the privilege of being a white fella, and so he was able to get away with being a much more progressive president. I think that he has a record that he is still not getting any credit for. But also, I have a lot of warm feelings for Obama. I think it was great that our country elected its first black president. I think that he, moved the Overton window in a way that was beneficial to the media narratives here in this country. I think there was a lot of good that came out of the the Obama administration, but I think the fact remains that it was a more centrist legislative administration. Maybe because of the time, maybe because he was black and there was not as much that he could get away with. But yeah, I think they were both great. Let's see here. All right, we're going to start wrapping up soon. Alex Nieves says, I think Biden should get credit for knowing how the government works and able to negotiate a lot. I mean, I think that's one example, but again, there's a laundry list of great things that the Biden administration did that he is still not getting credit for. B-Dubs536, how do you feel about the fact that the stock market's only doing as good as it is because of the TCJA? I don't know what the TCJA is. Can you illuminate me? Abdelele Al-Sufyani says, is a self-charging cars or what is called infinity generator banned and why? I have never heard anything about any of those things. Juggalo, the Overton window has shifted so far right that it makes the Reagan Republicans look like socialists. Completely agree with that, Juggalo. B for Square says, I think Biden will get more love as time goes on. From your lips to God's ears. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. I mean, an argument could be made that the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which was the $1 trillion tax giveaway to billionaires and giant corporations that the Trump administration signed into office, you could make the argument that that is part of the reason why the stock market did good during the Trump administration until he fucked it up because of his COVID response was so terrible that it crashed the economy for a little bit. But the fact of the matter is that it was a massive financial windfall to people that did not need a massive financial windfall, i.e. the billionaire class and giant corporations. And they give some crumbs to the middle class and the working class and people in poor communities and shit like that. But it was nothing compared to what they did for rich people. So yeah, you could make an argument that that is the case, but the stock market did great under the Biden administration, and nobody's given him fucking any credit for that. So why are we saying that the only thing that does good for the stock market is when Trump gives a shit ton of money to billionaires and giant corporations? Could it be that you have drunk the trickle-down economics Kool-Aid? Could it be that you are one of those people who is spreading this fucking bullshit narrative that the way that we make our country great is by giving more money and power to people who already have so much money and power, increasing income inequality, fucking over the poor and working class so hard that look at the stock market, look at how great it did. That's evidence of how good of a policy that is, while ignoring the cost of living crisis, while ignoring the fact that working people are struggling, that this generation is the first generation in many generations to be doing worse than their parents, that people are being forced to move to states that they don't want to move to because the real estate is cheaper. And they fucking have to move back in with their parents and shit like that. Can you miss me with that bullshit? Can you miss me with that bullshit? I'm going to look and see if you're responding, but I'm pretty happy with that rant, so I'm probably going to end it there. All right, let's see here. Did you respond? Did you respond? Did you respond? Did you respond? B-dubs, where are you, B-dubs? It stopped the worldwide tax system. That is not accurate at all. There are still worldwide taxes because the TCJA was in place during the Biden administration, dude. Yeah, but that's the only thing that affects the stock market at all. The tax code is the only thing that affects the stock market. That's the only thing, the tax code. Because this thing happened in 2008, 2007 that I think you might want to look into as well. Oh my God. Paul Devine says, go away, LOL. You don't have to be here. No one's forcing you to watch this. All right, B-dubs. Yeah, you can miss me with all that bullshit. It cut our taxes too. My response, again, it was crumbs. It was pittance. It was pittance. You are hawking trickle-down economics right now, buddy. And if you're not a rich person, if you're not getting paid to push this propaganda, then you're a sucker. Then you got fooled, you got conned, you fell for it. Because, again, unless you're a rich person or a bot who's being paid to spread this propaganda, then you were lied to and you fell for it. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you fell for it. I'm sorry that you got conned. I'm sorry that you fell for the world's most obvious con of all time. All right, everybody. Check back later to see when I'm going to be streaming again, because I have to cancel my stream again tomorrow because I'm going to be on the road. JarrettBerenstein.com for all your information. Give me a follow and everything. And I hope that you guys will come back and see me again soon. Please check back to see when that is going to be. And sometimes I just pop in. If I don't have time to put it on the schedule, I'll just do another live stream. Have an excellent new year, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. 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 Let's see here. Over on Twitch, Coolio Fan, income inequality. Oh, hey, it's Coolio Fan. You're my other Republican propagandist. So good to see you again, my man, he said sarcastically. All right, goodbye, everybody. Take care.